And I think being a leader today requires the courage to do the opposite. It's to choose to be a giver. It's to choose to think about the long-term well-being of your people. It's to choose to show up with radical presence, helping people slow down and just be more human. And I think if you can do that, if you can zig while the world is zagging, do the opposite of what they're doing, you'll really stand out.
Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Keynote Curators podcast. I'm Seth Deckman, your Keynote Curator. If your meetings are full but no one feels closer, this episode's your reset button. My guest, the one and only Chris Schembra, knows how to turn a room of strangers into a team that cares. He's here to show us how gratitude is done right, how the quickest path to trust, collaboration, and post-event momentum can be created. Chris, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me, Coach. You know, I call you that name because I believe that your role in this world is to empower people to find the best in themselves and bring their best selves to work each and every day. You do it through the speakers you work with and the events that you represent. And you've been a wonderful coach in my life to remind me to step into my humanity. And I thank you for that. So it's a big honor to be here.
Wow, you're welcome. I almost want to say that's a wrap, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see you in the next episode. That was beautiful. You know, Chris, I've been a guest on your podcast, so it just is such a cool thing to have the round trip come back and land over here at the Keynote Curators podcast. We're in for a great one today. Just want to give a shout out to everyone, you know, whether it's you're an event pro or an event producer, business leader, you're looking for, you know, something to gain traction in your personal life. Chris is here to share something that's going to help you. And if so, you know, leave us a like, leave us a love, leave us a celebration, comment, subscribe, pass it along. It's going to how we're going to really support and grow our community. So thanks for being here. Chris, you know, you have a lot to say about a lot of things in culture, in customer experience, in connection, in gratitude. I want to start with leadership. You know, I was thinking, you know, from our last conversation, doing the basic stuff, the kind of, I don't love the term low-hanging fruit, but you know, there's managers and then there's leaders, right? You got to pay people on time. If you're making pasta, we're going to get to your pasta sauce. You know, you got to deliver the ingredients on time. You got to deliver your product, your service in the right kind of way. Those are kind of the basics. Those are things to manage. But leadership is, you know, the bigger picture. And I don't think you can get there unless you do the basic stuff first. That's just kind of a thesis. Where I want to take this is your idea of a chosen surrender. You talked about this concept, and I want you to talk to our audience who are leaders. Many are event producers, event planners, meeting professionals. What that looks like and how they can apply this idea, this notion of chosen surrender in their lives, in their work, and, you know, really in their communities, wherever they are.
Yeah, thanks for teeing that up. You know, when you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it's food, it's safety, it's getting paid well in the workplace. These are the basic human rights that we have. But the funny part is there's a study of over 2,000 American employees that say through hard times, 55% of respondents prefer receiving more consistent actions of gratitude from their direct superior over a raise or a promotion. Isn't that interesting? People want to be paid their fair value, and they want to be more appreciated, you know, from the people that they report to. And I think from a leader's standpoint, your ability to not be the person that forces things on others, tries to correct or change their behavior, fixes a problem that might not need solving, and shift your whole idea of being a leader to helping things go right, accepting the things that you cannot change, asking good questions, changing the way you look at others, not as objects, but as people, returning back to that humanity. We live in a very fast-paced world, and sometimes as a leader, you have to surrender to that pace in life, just to slow down and be human. And that's a choice that we can all make. We live in a take-first world. We live in a world that values short-term thinking. It's designed around taking instead of giving. It's designed to trigger scarcity mindset in all of us. And I think being a leader today requires the courage to do the opposite. It's to choose to be a giver. It's to choose to think about the long-term well-being of your people. It's to choose to show up with radical presence, helping people slow down and just be more human. And I think if you can do that, if you can zig while the world is zagging, do the opposite of what they're doing, you'll really stand out.
I like your take on, in particular, you use the word force, and it seems like when I hear that word in the context of talking about leadership and your notion and your take on this, chosen surrender, is it's force versus power. And it's take versus give, and it's me versus being generous. And it's a real fulcrum. It's not binary. It's challenging, I find, in today's world where the pendulum is swinging so fast to, we need to make sure there's bean bags. I'm using this metaphorically, Chris, bean bags and Pac-Man and Skittles and, hybrid or all work from home or unlimited vacation hours. And the reality is the garbage still needs to get taken out. And there are things that, whether it's a directive or an order, are uncomfortable or, not the most appealing task, but they have to be done. And I think we're in a place now in society where the pendulum is swinging to a place I'm calling let leaders lead. And while we need to wholeheartedly, and I mean this wholeheartedly, take into account things like mental health and the modern workforce of whether it's maternal or paternal leave and all those kind of aspects, if you will. But the surrender of a leader is something that is just so fascinating in this notion that you bring it up because, or not that I brought it up, that you talk to, because it really is creating an area where people are going to be responsible, self-generative, take the initiative. So I'm going to get off my soapbox here and I'm going to leave you with this to kind of take it a little bit forward. You said we're in a place where there's takers. You talk about listening and you're here to give. Take us through your kind of mind about, I'm here to listen and I have something to give you. Talk to us about that.
Well, I'm gonna answer that by returning, back to the basics of where chosen surrender came from and how that links to listening and giving. Our whole journey started around the dinner table 10 years ago, and
pull our listeners in, if you may. I'm sorry to interrupt the journey that you're talking about. If we could just do a little interjection there to bring everybody up to speed.
I think it's a perfect tie-in. 10 years ago, very long story short, I found myself in a place that maybe some of you are feeling on today's call. My life looked great on paper. I was achieving external success. I had nice friends and families. People said nice things about me. But one day I woke up and realized that didn't necessarily feel so good in the heart. I was doing all the things I was meant to be doing, but it wasn't truly fulfilling me. I was working a dead-end job. I just broken up with my girlfriend. people were starting to drift away, I felt a little bit of anxiety, uncertainty of what tomorrow may bring, like we feel today, anxious about what job I was even prepared to do next, uncertain about tomorrow. And in that,
Self-conscious, totally
yeah,
self-conscious. Yeah.
imposter, self-conscious, all these kind of things. In that little like lonely, dark place, I knew I had to change something quick. I've got a long history of non-suicidal self-injury and multiple stints in rehab, jail, lifelong depression, mental health. And I knew if I didn't do something quick, I was liable to go down a deep, dark path. So very long story short, right? I'm sitting at the edge of my Murphy bed in a 300 square foot studio apartment in Manhattan. And I looked across to my kitchen. It's a 2-burner stove with a pull-out fridge. And I said, let me start playing around with food. And I accidentally invented a pasta sauce recipe. And it was a simple red sauce, a little spicy, but I figured I should feed it to people to see if it's even good or not. And this gets me back to chosen surrender. I decided to host a dinner party. On July 15th, 2015, I invited 15 of my friends that didn't know each other over to my home for a simple bowl of pasta sauce. And we worked together to create the meal. We had a shared group experience. And at 7:47 p.m., I paused and asked the dinner table a very simple question. If you could give credit or thanks to one person in your life that you don't give enough credit or thanks to, or that you've never thought to thank, who would that be? And then, Coach, we went around the table, each taking turns, sharing our answers, telling our stories, pausing, reflecting, eyes softening, sitting back in the chair, breathing for the first time in years. And then we leaned in and told stories. So, very long story short, I've been doing that ever since. Pasta sauce, human connection, that gratitude question. So, chosen surrender shows up because at every single one of those dinners, the people would walk through the door. I'm talking billionaires, Fortune 500 executives, Super Bowl champions, Academy Award winners, #1 recording artists, you name it. They walk through that door with ego and power, used to getting their way and telling people what to do. And Coach, they walk through that door and they have to hug me. They have to let their guard down. And they're holding their little bottle of wine, which is the cost of admission. And I tell them, go put the wine on the table, start drinking, and make a friend. Eventually, I take a fork and I walk up to someone and I say, here's 15 forks. Go set the table. And we start giving tasks to people to tell them what to do. And in that moment, whoever's in our apartment there for dinner gets to choose and maintain my authority and control? Or do I choose to surrender to the process? Do I choose to serve strangers I've never met? Do I choose to humble myself to do a small task like taking out the trash? Do I choose to lean in with my entire heart and human spirit to answer this gratitude question Chris has just asked us authentically and listen to the stories of those around us? And when you get people who choose to surrender to the process like that, it's a microcosm of what they then walk out of the dinner and do in their own cultures, their homes, their communities. That's what choosing surrender is about. It's the choice to slow down, to connect, to open up the heart, to listen, and to be in generosity of service of others for the greater good of our world. And we've been seeing that for 10 years.
That's so poignant, the imagery of whether you're a billionaire, an Emmy Award winner, and surrendering. The thread, the through line there is that this dinner is the vehicle by which people can communicate and can connect And I know that you have been just astonishingly surprised meal after meal by what people say and what people are grateful for. Take us down the road of generating and creating gratitude. And here's like a little bit of direction that I ask you to share with us. Because, for our audience who one might feel they don't either get enough gratitude, or they give and they don't get it, or they get it and they don't know how to give it, or some iteration of that. This is why we come back for these kind of conversations. So please, in the show notes, you're going to find out about these dinners, about how to book Chris as a speaker, his podcast, this episode, but share some stories. Share about what you're grateful for. That question at 7:47, maybe you can put in your mind that you're putting the napkins down or setting the table. But Chris, I am a firm believer that being grateful is a creative experience. And let me tell you what I mean by that, and then I'll hand the mic back to you. It's not saying something grateful in iambic pentameter or a 16th century Portuguese sonnet structure. It's from nothing, connecting and generating gratitude. And it's a creative act. It could actually end up being a haiku. Who knows, accidentally. But it's there. Share a little bit about that.
Well, at the end of the day, I'm an artist. And a good artist looks out at the world.
You are.
Through what's there, what's missing, what people are fighting for, what people are yearning for. And a good artist holds up a mirror. And through that art, people get to see themselves. Mm. And then through that art, people leave and go tell different stories based on what they learned through that art. Gratitude, specifically our gratitude question, if you could give credit or thanks to one person in your life that you don't give enough credit or thanks to, or you've never thought to thank, who would that be? That is a piece of art. You hold up that question to a group of people, your team, your clients, your family, your friends, whatever, and they get to reflect on their humanity through that question. And then they get to choose what kind of story they want to tell. And the cool thing about this art is it's so interactive. Gratitude feels good to give, the teller of the story. Gratitude feels good to receive, the recipient of that gratitude. And when you practice gratitude in a pro-social way within your culture, it feels good to observe. You get someone within your team to give gratitude to someone else on your team. The people that don't know each of those people, they want to associate themselves with both the giver and the receiver. So it's great in a pro-social way. And I do believe that there are a lot of people out there that underestimate the impact of gratitude while overestimating the perceived awkwardness of giving it in the first place. And so therefore we don't try.
Yeah.
And that ends up creating a culture of ingratitude. In the year 64 AD, an old Roman statesman, Lucius Annius Seneca, Seneca the Younger, he wrote a book called On Benefits, Da Beneficius. And he said there's no greater plague today in Roman society than the plague of ingratitude. He believes that all adultery, sacrilegious traitors, adult ravishers, thievery, homicides, tyrants, all stem from the ungrateful man. Mm. And so this art, this creative act of gratitude, the giving, the receiving, and the observing, can help us get through these great injustices in our world, which is a culture of ingratitude. And by the way, the world has been programmed and built to keep us in a perpetual state of ingratitude. Right? We naturally have a negative memory bias. We take in 9 bits of negative for every 1 bit of positive. For every 1 negative word in a media article headline, it increases click-through rates. We have a media bias exposure, a recency exposure. We are programmed to sell the negative. Ingratitude. And so we as leaders and our artistic selves have the creative potential to use gratitude as a force for good, to help people change, to invite good behavior.
Yeah, it's brilliant. I love the through line all the way from Seneca to today. You know, I have heard, I don't know, a decade ago, 20 years ago, 5 years ago, um, don't be so appreciative because people will take advantage of you. And that's a mindset that's out there in the realm of ingratitude.
Uh,
And
I mean, there's truth to it, by the way. There is a limit to giving. Adam Grant did the research. Adam Grant, in his book Give and Take, did a big research study that essentially found that there's 3 types of people in this world. There's givers, there's takers, and there's matchers. Some of the least successful people were takers. They just took. The people that were a little bit more successful than them were the matchers. They gave in order to take. But the results of the givers in the research study both made up the most successful people in the study, as well as the least successful people in the study. It's not bad to give. It's not bad to give gratitude. It's not bad to appreciate people. But if you do it in a way that depletes you of your resources, your time, your effort, your energy, your money, your social capital, whatever,
yeah.
You end up being taken advantage of. But if you're strategic about your giving, it becomes a net positive and it leads to success. It's a big network effect.
It's a balance, right? But when I think of, I love the metaphor of the mirror and the art, because when you're in a group setting, if our viewers, our subscribers, our listeners can just kind of close their mind. If you can imagine being asked this question about who somebody you haven't given enough to, or somebody that you would like to acknowledge, or you haven't at all, and be grateful for them and what they are in their life. Immediately, I can imagine, Chris, and you and I have done this exercise. I did it on your podcast and it brought me to tears, is the observations, as you mentioned. It's almost like a multi-dimensional mirror, because you're either grappling with who I haven't done to the measure that works for me, and then why, completely numb to and have completely left my radar, and why. And then what am I going to say, and to what measure, and how I'm going to express that. It's just a really beautiful, the elegant simplicity of it is just gorgeous. And, that's why it's been so successful. I want to take it just a little bit further. Are you up for that?
Yeah.
You are an artist, you are an inspirer, and you're also an inspiree. Where do you draw that inspiration from?
The people. Oh gosh, Seth. The people. I've had the privilege. You know what? God, that's a dirty word sometimes. I've earned the right. I've fought my way to be able to sit with tens of thousands of people.
You caused that.
I built it, and I am so grateful. And I've had, by the way, that's not an ego thing. That's just saying it wasn't luck that got me there. I've got the blood, the sweat, the tears, earned the right to sit with tens of thousands of people in the last 10 years. And I say we, as a community, as a collective, as mentors, as coaches, we have observed that people are yearning from the body, from the soul, yearning for meaningful moments of human connection. That's my sole purpose in any work we do, whether we're advising companies or we're working with 4-year-old kids on Skid Row. The purpose is to inspire more meaningful moments of human connection. And so what inspires me is watching the way people lean into this work, right? There's something that came up at our dinner, one of our dinners, about a month ago. I only do 49% of the work, right? I sell the gig. I do the research. I give the speech. I invite the people. I do my part. But the 51% is on the other people. They show up. They choose to bring their heart and soul. They choose to be open. They choose to surrender. They choose to ask good questions. They choose to listen and learn to the experiences of those around them. And then they choose to take all of that good juju and do something good for our world after. And so I have the privilege of being inspired by having watched tens of thousands of those people go out and do good stuff for our world. And that gives me hope, because I don't know, not all people are bad people. Most of us are really, really, really good people. There's just a lot of stuff standing in our way, leaders and managers included.
It's, I'm remembering a personal story you told me, and I hope it's okay to share here. And I can really identify it with when you were heading uptown from a job interview at a retail place, and that ended up being a conversation that really was the point of departure for so much in your life. What I love is that you didn't hesitate when I asked you about, what inspires you. And I say this to my children every day. You never know who you're sitting next to. And we were at the end of the summer before school started, we took a family trip nearby beach, and we were looking at backpacks, back to school backpacks, while we were away for the last kind of family weekend before school started. And we were really getting under the hood on this backpack purchase, Chris, like looking online at the Chromebooks that they give out at the local elementary school, what the dimensions were, would it fit in the backpack, getting a tape measure out. It was like, there was a lot involved. Going back to my grandfather, who was a tailor, I was measuring material. And the woman was astonishingly wonderful. Young lady, maybe college age-ish, let's say, patient and giving and present. And when we thought we were pushing, to look at another one and do they have the color, it was extraordinary. Yesterday, I took my daughter to the doctor in another town from where this beach was, and that same woman was behind the desk at this physician's office. And on the way out, she said, "You look so familiar." And I kind of looked at her and I said, "Oh my gosh, the backpack." And we just had this laugh. And I just thanked her there, and she kind of blushed. And for me, it was just the natural instinct. I said, "I want you to know how grateful I am for you," because it was a theme. It was like an issue. It was a little bit like taking too much time and energy. And you dissipated all that the way you handled us and were with us. And she kind of blushed and everything. And on the ride home, I talked to my daughter about, you never know who you're talking to. You never know who you're sitting next to. Everybody lives an astonishing life. And I think that the art, Chris, that you're bringing forth through dinners and gratitude, but there is this access to finding the astonishing sensibility of each of us. And it's a real art.
It's, first of all, beautiful story. Do you know the name of the lady?
I do, Kimberly.
Cheers to Kimberly. Amazing lady. I look forward to buying a backpack from her soon. Isn't that interesting? My immediate response to hearing this beautiful story of customer service is for me to say, oh, I want to financially support this person.
Mm.
What a metaphor for the workplace, folks, right? Actually, Google found in their promotion to emotion that buyers with a strong emotional tie to your brand are more willing to buy more, promote more, demonstrate more loyalty. So there is a lot there. But the people, so cheers, Kimberly. One of the great words that stands out to me is the word serendipity. When we ask this gratitude question around our dinner table, there's only so many characters someone can answer. A parent, a grandparent, a teacher, a mentor, a friend, a colleague, an ex-bad boss, God, their dog, themselves, whatever.
A neighbor.
And so when you're sitting next to someone that you perceive to have nothing in common with, and A, they've just passed you the bread, because you can't hate someone that just passed you the bread, but B, you hear them give gratitude to a grandparent who served in World War II, and then it flickers in your heart and mind, remembering your own grandfather who served as a cook in the Navy in World War II. That's a moment of serendipity that you and someone you thought you had nothing in common with just shared. And it makes y'all connect in ways unimaginable. And so what I've learned is that everybody's got a story to share. They're all yearning to share it. People are burnt out, but I think they're burnt out because they're lonely. And when you remove all that fluff and just let people just come, God, it shifts their hearts and minds and souls. It nourishes their souls, right? We talk about social health is the next frontier of well-being. We talk about social connection. We talk about social fitness. Hannah Pryor talks about social muscle atrophy. Vanessa Van Edwards talks about social fluency. Smiley talks about belonging. Riaz talks about conversations. I talk about something just bone deeper. Soul and social nourishment. And when you feed that hunger in your people, they'll be with you for a lifetime and they'll do anything you want.
Right, because that fabric is a bond that
it's
goes
bone deep.
Yeah.
It's bone deep.
Yeah.
By the way, Cornell found that when teams eat together, they actually work better together as a team. Save more lives.
Yeah.
They did a whole study on firefighters, and they proved that when firefighters eat spaghetti in the firehouse, they actually work better together as a team and they save more lives. The metaphor, the parallel metaphor of shopping together, cooking together, serving each other, eating together, talking together, and then cleaning up together, it blends itself to the actual working together, having a base layer of trust, having the safety to have productive conflict and constructive challenge, challenging the insights of others, and then co-creating new solutions. It's a perfect parallel metaphor in the workplace.
Yeah, and I mean, it's so harmonious. It almost feels unreal, but it's real.
There's an actual diagram and like a scientific study that I'll send to you to put in the show notes below. It's ridiculous how scientific this simple act of dining together. First of all, in a global health report, they show that the difference in life expectancy between dining alone and dining with at least one other person, let alone 16 other people, the difference in life expectancy and overall well-being is a higher boost in well-being than income or unemployment. Duh.
Yeah. So everybody get together and grab somebody and break some bread.
If you're watching this and it's a really hard time for your company and you can't pay people more, lean in with social connection, lean in with gratitude. It's not going to fix the base layer of Maslow's hierarchy, but it's going to give them the, discretionary effort, to at least stay and give you, patience while you're trying to make it up.
It's a sustenance from which to be connected. So, which is kind of your core virtue. Chris, this has been such a beautiful conversation. We've come to the end of our time together for this episode, but I think we're going to have another meal together on a podcast, and if not in person. I just want to acknowledge and recognize and extend some gratitude for the artist that you are, the mirror holder, the mirror maker, and the vessel and vehicle that you are of gratitude and providing an avenue and a pathway for people to access that. And it's so needed, and I'm so appreciative of that. So just thank you so much.
Thank you, pal. Thank you for having me on, Coach.
You got it.
You're a great interviewer.
Thank you. Well, I always say this, but it's true. It takes one to know one. And to our audience, our viewers, our subscribers, just again, this is why you come here, for these beautiful, rich conversations where we can all become better. So thanks. Share and share alike. Bring everybody in. Let's expand the community together. And we'll see you next time.